You're absolutely correct. My apologies. And I overlooked the core of the request, which is, again, not position request per se. This is a proposal for $816,000 from the general fund to the department and one permanent attorney position. Also, this funding would be used for 1 year for 4 existing environmental scientists for a total of a 5-person team. This team would be deployed for negotiations and discussions in tributaries to the San Joaquin, because in 2 of those tributaries there are privately owned, federally licensed hydroelectric facilities which must complete a federal licensing process on the Tuolumne and in the Merced. And then there is also in each of those tributaries an interest on the part of the irrigation districts to discuss with our department a package of flow and non-flow measures which could be used as a settlement relative to the district's engagement with Ms. Marcus under her water quality control proceedings at the State Board. So the proposition that's been created by my department to Turlock Irrigation District, Modesto, Merced, Oakdale, South San Joaquin, the city and county of San Francisco, is we're far better off trying to negotiate a settlement than either relying on the federal agency to prescribe an outcome, and if we can forge a settlement, to present it together to the State Water Board as a plan for implementation. I need this capacity to turn these staff to a focused commitment over this calendar, the remaining of this year and into the beginning part of next year, to see if we can pull these discussions off. If we can, then I think what you'll see is an equitable distribution of engagement, both in the mainstream of the San Joaquin as it relates to that restoration program and in the tributaries to the San Joaquin. And again, apologies for...
Thank you. No worries. I just think it's a good idea to set parameters for how we comport ourselves, and that's good information for everybody. You just provided me with the opportunity. And I do want to point out that you asked that you be allowed in the future to come back and continue to discuss these issues. This is, in fact, an ongoing, the budget issues are an ongoing conversation. Every year they're a little bit different, but we have multiple points in time at which we are able to have the conversation and discuss these things. So, of course, you will come back and provide us with an update, and we'll be happy to hear it at that time. And, you're only armed with as much information as you have at any given point in time. That will change as things move forward, so we appreciate that. So we're going to take public comment on this item, if there's any. Seeing none, is there a motion? This is issue number 2, Sacramento and San Joaquin tributaries. Is there a second?
There is a second.
I'll bet there is. Thank you. Let's move to a vote.
Bloom.
Aye.
Gordon. Williams.
Aye.
Patterson. Bigelow. That item's out.
That item is out, and we'll now take the now we're going to return to CAL FIRE. Director Pimlott, thank you for being patient. Appreciate that. As you're stepping forward, when I made my comments earlier, I meant to and failed to, but now is as good a time as any. I wanted to, when we were talking about the contributions, the bravery, the difficult circumstances under which your firefighters work, I wanted to just mention that we lost a inmate firefighter in Southern California fighting a fire in my district in Malibu. Her name was Shauna Jones. This happened just in the past couple of weeks. In fact, I think she was just laid to rest, and I just wanted to call her name out and make sure that we were thinking about her and her family and the great loss that they've suffered.
Thank you.
With that, please proceed.
Good morning again, Chairman Bloom and members of the committee. Ken Pimlott, Director of CAL FIRE, and I thank you for your comments earlier about and recognizing the firefighters and what they do, and the recent passing of firefighter Shauna Jones on literally an 8-acre fire in Los Angeles County, in the dead of winter. And again, that is a testament to the conditions we're facing. Excuse me. Again, the conditions that were on that fire, we're in the dead of winter, and we're seeing fire conditions and having fires actively burn throughout the year. So thank you for that. So before you today, CAL FIRE has three main components in our budget requests that you're going to be discussing today. First is the creation of a professional standards unit within CAL FIRE. The second are those that relate to bringing CAL FIRE's command and control into the 21st century and building a capacity in key areas of our command and control element. And finally, the request for funding for the ongoing contract for CAL FIRE's aviation fleet, our existing aviation fleet and program. And certainly, as we discussed in the drought portion of this hearing earlier this morning, the 2015 fire season was a challenging one, and as we just discussed, 2016 will continue to present itself as a challenging one despite the recent rains. So
Thank you, and then we'll take public comment collectively on all the issues that you speak to when you've completed your testimony.
So with that, I'll start with the first proposal, a professional standards program. CAL FIRE does not have a centralized process or dedicated staff responsible for performing administrative investigations or preparing adverse actions. We currently redirect existing staff from other programs or utilize retired annuitants as available to perform this work, resulting in a delay or a deferral of assigned responsibilities, which creates an impact in the rest of the department. Both the quality and the consistency of our administrative review and process suffers from this. We essentially have no centralized function to oversee and ensure we have a consistent program statewide. We conduct approximately 50 to 60 background investigations annually and an estimated 150 administrative investigations statewide, and they range in complexity across the board. The department employs 13 of the state's 21 collective bargaining units, while firefighters within bargaining unit 8 are the majority of the department's employees. We certainly have, again, a number of employees from other bargaining units. The department has to maintain standards within our communications officers, deputy state fire marshals, peace officers, as well as administrative staff, all represented by that set of bargaining units. The professional standards program will be a critical resource that will focus on policy, procedure development, and training and education to ensure that managers, supervisors, as well as lead employees, because the CAL FIRE utilizes fire apparatus engineers, fire captains as our leads on fire engines on a daily basis throughout the department. Collectively, they're all supervising. It's to ensure that all of those individuals have the necessary tools to address hiring, discipline, and other critical employee development processes. This program is going to give the department the opportunity to better facilitate and coordinate activities that we are already doing throughout the department. It's not suggesting doing something new. It's suggesting supporting a process that's already in place throughout the department. The current process, unfortunately, has led to inefficiencies, delays, potential violations of policies, laws, memorandums of understanding, and employee rights, all of which place employees, managers, the department, and the state at risk. The program implementation is going to be addressed in three key areas: prevention, education, administration, and operational components. We feel the workload is ongoing. As I talked about, on average, 150 investigations over time already occur throughout the department every year. The request for 14 positions is by contrast to other departments, modest. We're essentially looking for one investigative position for every 500 employees within the department. The Fish and Wildlife Department in their public professional standards unit has essentially one staff per 91 positions. The Department of Parks and Recreation has one investigator per 174 positions, and state hospitals has one investigator for every 281 positions. We have been working and in discussions with, again, the largest labor organization within CAL FIRE, the one that makes up our firefighters, Bargaining Unit 8, to talk about concerns going forward. We have met previously, and we've scheduled a meeting just within the next 2 weeks to really dedicate time to walk this program forward and work on ideas for implementing the program together. Both the obviously working through the administrative progressive discipline piece, but as critical, and probably the critical component being the training and education piece for all of our employees. So with that, I can open it up for questions.
Thank you. Could you also address the issue that we pulled from the agenda with respect to fire safety, flame retardants, and building insulation?
Absolutely, and I'll defer to State Fire Marshal Tanya Hoover to address that right now.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. CAL FIRE Office of the State Fire Marshal is requesting $125,000 from the Building Standards Administration Special Revolving Fund for a one-time in this fiscal year 16-17. The funds are to be used for a contracting to accomplish the research, review, testing, and implementation of any proposed building standards for fire safety, having to do with flame retardants and building insulation. It's very focused on the Phase 2 process of green building, and it gives us the opportunity to go to a neutral third party to do that testing and evaluation to determine if insulations and subfloors can be used without the flame retardant chemical makeup. And any questions?
Thank you. Director Pimlott, would you also add some comments, your comments now regarding issues 2 through 6?
Absolutely.
And then we'll take public comment collectively on all the items.
I probably should have asked that in the beginning. Thank you. Next proposal, Situational Command Awareness Data Acquisition, or SCADA. This portion is going to improve the department's command and control system. The administration is requesting $7.6 million and 12.8 positions to acquire and support automatic vehicle locating and mobile data computer devices in all CAL FIRE emergency response equipment. Again, this capability will allow for improved dispatching of resources to wildland incidents around the state. This technology is key to improving firefighter safety. On the 2014 King Fire, just to the east of us here in El Dorado County, an engine company was out of contact for over 40 minutes as they entered an area without radio connectivity. As you may remember, this fire burned over 15 miles in just one afternoon. Extreme fire behavior, and we had no radio contact or any communication with our firefighters for 40 minutes. Had the engine been equipped with this equipment, it would have been possible to determine the engine's location and, if necessary, dispatch aircraft or other support resources to ensure the safety of that engine company. This technology is also used by our local government partners. It will be rolled out throughout California. We will take the opportunity to evaluate workload in our command centers. These two requests complement each other. In other words, when we talk about the ECC staffing, it's very much an integrated process as we go forward. So, next proposal, ECC staffing. This is the second of the department's requests to improve command and control systems, ultimately to improve response times to wildland fire incidents to allow the department to move more efficiently, use resources, and meet the goal of keeping 95% of our fires on the state responsibility areas to 10 acres or less. The administration is requesting a total of $17 million and 61.6 positions, along with along with 34.3 two-year limited duration temporary help positions to meet the increased workload and critically low staffing levels in CAL FIRE's 21 emergency command centers. The request also includes additional staffing and funding for the 6 contract counties to increase their staffing levels. CAL FIRE's emergency command centers have seen a significant staffing increase since the 1980s. Over that time, changes in the technology have changed the volume of calls. For example, on a wildland fire, initial smoke column can generate over 200 cellular phone calls into the command centers, all of which have to be answered. Next in our proposals are our public information officers. This is making permanent the augmentation that the department received through drought augmentation. 5 positions and $1.67 million for public information officers. The LAO, the staff write-up captures the need well, not only to support the significant fire activity occurring in the state, but also build a strong public information campaign around the state. Messaging includes information on tree mortality, which is very much front and center in the state right now, and the steps homeowners and residents can take. Ready, set, go, one less spark, one less wildfire. 95% of fires are started by people, so public education and working directly with the residents in California is key to reducing the number of fire starts in the state. And in this particular proposal, as we talk about the new norm in fire season and preparing and looking at this for the next 20 years, as we talked about in the drought panel, this initiative is key to addressing that long-term issue. Also looking at an aviation contract increase, and I want to point out this is not related to the separate initiative to replace CAL FIRE's helicopter fleet. This is looking at funding for 2 aviation support contracts that we currently have through DynCorp and LSI corporations. DynCorp provides fixed-wing pilots and maintenance for both our fixed-wing, our air tankers, and our rotary and maintenance for both our fixed-wing and rotary-wing aircraft. So they are key to managing and supporting our aviation operation. The cost increase that we're seeing within the contract is due to 2 things: increased fire season length and intensity. Again, we're just utilizing those resources within that contract much longer. Aircraft are flying when they were normally back in for maintenance, and we're using them longer throughout the year. So they're extending and exceeding their maintenance interval, and those aircraft have to come back in, and again, that's a workload and increased cost. The base budget for DynCorp is around about $28 million per year. Base budget for LSI is about $7.3 million. These increases are not related to the new, as I talked about, the new helicopter replacement, but are ongoing. We're also seeing mandatory cost of living adjustments for pilots and mechanics that were not anticipated when the original contract was put together. Certainly supportive of our command and control element, but supporting the entire department is increases in our information technology program. The staff write-up captures this request very well. We're looking for $3 million and 14 positions to bolster the department's information technology and information security program going forward. As technology is becoming increasingly embedded into all of the department's day-to-day operations, staffing has not kept up with the complexity and scale of need and support. These staff will be able to not only provide support to large incidents, but also support transitions to new technologies. Closely related, again, to our request is both the automatic vehicle locating, the mobile data technology, because all of that is going to work hand in hand to ensure the support is right down on the fire ground for the firefighters to have the technology that they need. With that, I will turn it back to the committee for questions.
Thank you very much. I was frankly shocked when I joined you on the visit to the site of the Valley Fire to learn that the department could not locate instantaneously where vehicles are out in the field, and that the system that's in place involved firefighters calling in and telling, explaining their location. So the issue number 2 is certainly extremely important. I do have a question about issue number 1. There have been some concerns expressed that what might be setting up here is something that's akin to an internal affairs unit, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak about that.
Thank you for the question. It is not what has historically may be termed as an internal affairs program. This is essentially providing a cross-section of 14 personnel, investigators, attorneys, staff support, to do what we're already doing now. Right now, there's a process in place for managers and supervisors are all responsible to perform, to be supervisors, to perform progressive discipline, to work with employees, correct behavior. And as that moves forward, there's a process for taking action on employees, all geared towards certainly correcting behavior. But certainly, ultimately, cases can become more complex, and there's a need for not only to investigate administrative investigations on activity, but also then to carry that forward into adverse action. And ultimately, there's an appeal process through the State Personnel Board, and there's preparing that testimony and actually testifying as a department at those hearings as needed. All of that requires expertise, requires knowledge and experience within administrative investigations and within the state's civil or personnel laws and policies governing that. This program is going to provide additional support expertise so that managers and supervisors have program experts to consult as they're carrying out their processes and programs, and then they'll have a place for those complex cases that come forward for them to address and look at and take off out of the plate of the managers and supervisors who may not have that expertise. But it does not absolve any of the managers and supervisors from the existing process that's in place. This program will simply provide that ability to perform the investigation and then put it back in the system for it to be adjudicated through the process. But it's not just about the taking action component. The critical piece of this is the training and education and, quite frankly, prevention. One of the things we've identified in the last 18 months since we've worked through the challenges in our academy has been looking at a number of areas in the department that we can do a much better job in, and that's providing information and education to all of our employees, in particular supervisors and managers, so they have all the tools that they need to head off issues when they first start, so they don't become complex issues down the road. So providing training, information, education to, again, not just our supervisors and managers, our lead workers and our employees. And certainly been in conversation and working with CAL FIRE Local 2881 and others about doing this together so that we can provide, again, team up and provide this training across the board.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the additional detail. Since there have been some concerns expressed and to allow for a little more conversation over the next month or two, I'm going to recommend that we hold that item open and come back to it when we revisit the budget. Yes, Mr. Gordon.
Yeah, I just want to support your recommendation to hold it open. And I think it's unclear to me, and one of the things that I also want to look at is, really, what is the workload? I mean, how many, you say these are routine, these are ongoing activities that, and, how many disciplinary actions a year are we talking about? And how many of those are simple? How many of those are complex? What is the nature of the training that you think is necessary in the department? I think I can support the training component clearly at some future point. Want to be clear about what it really is the staff need before I would want to take action, and I'm also supportive of giving you time to have further conversations with the represented employees.
Thank you. Director Pimlott, you did not present on issue number 7. There's a good reason for that. It's not part of the governor's proposal. It's a proposal that comes from staff and myself. So I'm going to make a brief presentation on that, and then we'll hear from LAO, Department of Finance. If DOF has any comments, we'll move to public comment. So the issue number 7 staff proposal stems from the February 22nd joint hearing that our subcommittee held with the Assembly Natural Resources Committee on the tree mortality crisis. Last year's budget included $5 million in local grants from the State Responsibility Area Fire Prevention Fund aimed at funding local entities' efforts to augment CAL FIRE's ongoing fire prevention activities. On February 1st of this year, CAL FIRE announced the award of 19 SRA fund grants in 6 counties that have been greatly affected by tree mortality. Over $1.7 million was approved for local projects focused on the removal of dead and dying trees in order to reduce the wildfire threat around homes within the counties of Fresno, Kern, Madera, Mariposa, Tulare, and Tuolumne. With over 29 million dead or dying trees and following a very devastating fire season in California, staff is recommending the subcommittee consider appropriating additional grant funding from the SRA Fire Prevention Fund for dead tree removal within the SRA. So far this year, CAL FIRE has received 178 applications requesting nearly $13 million in SRA grant funds, and currently there's a fund balance of $43.5 million. Additionally, staff has learned that there is also nearly $40 million in accounts receivable from fee payers. This is per the Board of Equalization. So specifically, staff is recommending the approval of $10 million in SRA Fire Prevention Fund the Fire Prevention Fund for 2 years for local grants to assist with dead tree removal within the SRA. We think that'll help move that tree removal program forward as much as possible, as much as we can. So that's the presentation on that issue. Now we'll ask LAO if there's any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Ashley Ames with the LAO. For most of the proposals, we have not raised any concerns, but we do have a few comments on the professional standards program. We do find that it's reasonable for the department to standardize its policies and procedures, increase its oversight, and make its training programs more robust. However, we did find that the ongoing workload for the program seemed unclear for a few reasons, and most of that is just a function of the fact that the program is new. Therefore, the current proposal is based on an estimation of workload, and it's a projection. And while we find this is a reasonable starting point, the actual ongoing workload might change once it's implemented. Secondly, it's unclear how the creation of the new professional standards unit will affect the ongoing workload and what its influence will be on the number of required investigations and adverse actions that might be undertaken. And then finally, third, because the makeup of activities is proposed to shift over time, we find that the number and classifications of staff might also shift, and therefore there might be a different appropriate makeup for the ongoing workload. And therefore, based on those findings, we did find that there's some uncertainty about the level and nature of the department's ongoing workload, and so we recommended that you approve the additional ongoing resources just on a 3-year limited term basis. That would also provide you with the opportunity to revisit this program once it's implemented in a few years to determine the precise ongoing nature of the workload as well as evaluate the program effectiveness.
Thank you for those comments. Department of Finance?
Thank you. Leah Moore, Department of Finance. I just wanted to note that for item 7 on the SRA fund, currently expenditures exceed revenues by about $9 million a year. But as stated in the agenda, there is sufficient fund balance for this proposal should you approve it.
Thank you. Any questions from members on any of these items? Mr. Bigelow?